And we're on the telephone with Ken. Make sure I get this right. Miyagishima. Did I get that right?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. And you are running for governor of the great state of New Mexico. Welcome to Crazy Radio.
Well, thank you, Anthony. Welcome to the listeners who are listening. And just real quick, Alamogordo's got a really close place to me in my heart because my mom, my grandparents were there. That's where she grew up and where they are from. And I even went to school for a couple of years. I think it was North Elementary and Yucca, I think was the other school. So, yeah, I have a little bit of Alamogordo there with me, and I have a lot of cousins that still live there, relatives.
And I understand your family goes back to Alamogordo many, many, many years. Tell me about that real quick.
Right. So my great-grandmother was a Mescalero Apache, and my grandparents, Juan and Concha Gallegos, and that's the Gallegos clan. If you go to the Founders Square, I think it's on 10th Street and White Sands, somewhere around there, you'll see that they were one of the settling families in the Tularosa Basin. So, like I said, Alamogordo is close to my heart, so whatever we can do to help them, I'm there.
I like that. All right. Well, let's talk about some things happening that are affecting the great state of New Mexico. First of all, you are a Democrat, and you know that you are speaking in red country. I don't have to tell you that. So right now, the government shutdown is starting to really affect people at a local level. Do you feel this is going to influence anybody away from you as the time moves forward?
I would hope not. I have nothing to do with the government shutdown, so I would not think not. I can imagine those that are employed at Holloman Air Force Base and all the federal contractors, and believe it or not, so my son is furloughed right now because he works at White Sands Missile Range, and he says quite a few people from Alamogordo work over there at White Sands, so it's affecting a whole lot of people, and that's a shame. But I understand. In fact, I just got a press release where it looks like they're grounding a lot of flights around the United States, so it'll probably be a few more days before they open up, because they ground the aircraft flying. That's not good, and then they'll probably call Congress back in and get this thing resolved. So,
well, like I said, it is affecting Republicans negatively, but it seems to be hitting the Democrats a little harder. So this will be kind of a fun one to watch off.
First off, let me just say, I'm a moderate. I mean, if I'm probably one of the more conservative Democrats. In fact, it's funny. I have to tell you, I have to chuckle. So if you go to my website, or Facebook, or my website, kenfriendnewmexico.com, but primarily Facebook, people think I'm a Republican, and so they criticize me, right? And then you have a few people saying, wait a minute, I think Ken's a Democrat. So then they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. So it's funny. I mean, I have it right there. I'm a Democratic candidate for governor of New Mexico. But you know what? I don't know how to explain it. I'm fiscally conservative, and when it comes to social issues, I'm pretty moderate. So it's constantly, that's probably I'd say about one out of every 10 questions I'm asked, what is my party affiliation, whether it's the tie that I wear or, I don't know, my positions on things. I want to reform medical malpractice. I want to take away the catch and release. I think we need to do it with that Arnold Tool assessment that allows the judges or kind of mandates the judges to release these alleged perpetrators back into the street when 70% of them get convicted. So I think the position that I take is very pro law enforcement, and we just need to clean up our state.
How about this thing they're doing that the governor was all behind, and it seems to be a nightmare, and it goes right along with what you said, cashless bail?
Can't stand it. Someone asked me, what would I do? I'd say I would do 90% different than MLG. There's a few things that she probably did okay. But that cashless bail, if you stop and look at it, see, this is the thing that I researched. When they passed that, somehow the Supreme Court took it upon themselves to have an assessment tool put in. That's called the Arnold Tool assessment. And that basically ties the hands of judges. When a person gets arrested, it can even be for a small offense, the judge has to there's these boxes they literally have to check. If they can't check them all off in a certain time period, they have to let them go, which is wrong. And so that's one of the things that I'm campaigning on is this is something here that's going to take constitutional amendment, because that's how it was put on. Well, the cashless bail was put on, or no cash bail, and has to be removed off of a constitutional amendment. So, but I'm not supportive of that.
Recently, sadly, this year continues the trend of more and more guns being found at New Mexico high schools. In particular, the Albuquerque Metro, there were, 2 or 3 just the other day once again. How do you address that without affecting those who are law-abiding gun owners?
Well, first, I want to make sure the schools are actually safe, the perimeter. I mean, I had a program when I was mayor. And by the way, I don't know if your listeners knew I was mayor of Las Cruces for 16 years straight. I'm the longest serving mayor since we were incorporated in 1907. But so I had a program with elementary kids, and there were some schools really good. You had to go through the front, but there were schools that you could get in other sides of the school, and I always used to just think of that. I thought if I was ever governor, every school is going to be secure. So that's the first thing. And I know that some schools are going to this. And again, I'd like to know what the parents think about this, but there are some where they have these gun detectors. Okay. And then the final thing is this. This is the biggest one. I don't know if you're a parent or not, but I am, and I'll thank God my kids are all grown. But when they were younger and they're living at home, and I lend them my car, and if they hurt somebody with my car, I'm liable. And it's time that we start making parents responsible for what their kids are doing. They may say, well, I didn't know little Johnny had a gun. Well, you know what? You need to go to his room then and figure that out. You can't just turn a blind eye. You can't put your head in the sand. You need to know. You're our first line of defense as parents. You got to know what your kids are doing. If you know that they're out at 3 o'clock in the morning, come on. It's time to start holding some of the parents accountable, because if that's how they got their gun, it's not right to expect gun owners, legally abiding citizens, the right to bear arms and affect them because of some parents' kids, goof around. And it's kind of like when we're in school, everybody's paying attention. You got that one kid who won't be quiet, and teacher says, okay, all of you, you get all punished. And that's not right. No, take the kid out. Same thing. You hold the parents accountable for their kids' actions.
You were actually, I think, the first, if not one of the first, to report your campaign report. You released your campaign report way ahead of deadline. What drove you to do that?
Well, the deadline is due on the 14th. And it takes into consideration all the expenditures and contributions as of the 6th of October. So ironically, I got a contribution on the 7th, so that goes on the next report. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, why not? It's done. It's up to date. And I wanted people to know, okay, so let me back up. When I was mayor, I never took money from anyone who did business with the city. I never took money from contractors. Not that contractors are bad, but but they would have to, work with the city on that. I wanted to remain kind of independent of that. And so I did the same thing. I've been doing the same thing as governor. I'm not taking any money from contractors that do business with the state, or anyone that does business with the state for that matter. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I wanted people to know that I am not taking money from PACs, from government agencies, anyone that does business with the state. And it was finished. So why not?
So you're not for sale?
Never have been.
You sure you're a Democrat?
That's what I'm telling you. When they read my position, they think I'm a Republican, and I just say, but it's really more common sense stuff. I mean, we're trying, the thing of, this is the problem. It's really not the governor's office. There's a crisis of governance in that legislature. Okay. So earlier I mentioned about medical malpractice reform, and there was one little item that the governor was kind of stepping her toe in to take the temperature here. And there were 3 state senators. I'm just going to say Peter, Joe, and Katie. Okay. I'm not going to say their last names. Peter, Joe, and Katie. Maybe your listeners remember a band called Peter, Paul, and Mary. So I call them Peter, Joe, and Katie. So these 3 state senators sent a message to Governor Lujan Grisham that, no, I don't think we want to discuss this. And then earlier I told you about statesmen and politicians. These are politicians. And if you look at Webster's, it says a person in politics for the betterment of themselves. 2 of those people, they're medical malpractice lawyers, and they are actually blocking meaningful legislation to keep our doctors here in New Mexico. I'm sure your listeners currently are experiencing some type of situation. Either it's taking a long time to get a doctor's appointment, their doctor's leaving, something's going on in the medical field in New Mexico. I mean, I have friends that are doctors and they're leaving. There's a doctor in Gallup. There's only 2 doctors. One of them left, leaving 9,000 patients to figure out where they're going to get because the other doctor already has 9,000 patients, and they probably can't take on another 9,000. That's 18,000 patients. There's only 365 days in a year. So but getting back to that, the crisis is that legislature. I've got to, and God's willing, if I win, we're going to get that thing fixed, because that is how we're going to make New Mexico, lift New Mexico up.
What about the telehealth doctoring that's going around the country? Do you think that would make an impact here in the land of enchantment?
Oh, absolutely. But see, that's part of those 3 state senators I was telling you about that are blocking that. That's called that, besides interstate compact agreements, but that's kind of part of that, because they won't do this telehealth, because if you need, let's say you had a doctor that moved to Colorado or Arizona, and you want to still use them, they won't allow that, because the legislature won't allow that to happen, because they can't sue that doctor. That's crazy. That is pure and simple greed, and that fits the definition of politician. And I'm not saying that these state senators need to be removed. I just want them removed from their post. I want them to go to another position, to another committee. If they were a congressperson, they're not allowed to even have a business. They have to put it in a blind trust. But in New Mexico, that's just not right. You're a medical malpractice lawyer, you're chairman of the Senate Judiciary, and you're blocking meaningful legislation that would allow New Mexicans to have more choices of doctors here, or prevent our doctors from leaving. And only because you want to continue to make a lot of money. Yeah, no, that's not right. And as governor, I'll make sure I'll rectify that problem.
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, famously, in the opinion of a majority of people down here, overstepped her bounds during the COVID pandemic. Matter of fact, New Mexico was one of the strictest states when it came to the don't leave your house and don't open your business rulings, as well as one of the last states to have the shackles removed. Now, I hope to never see another pandemic like that again, but if it was to happen, what would you do the same and different as MLG?
Well, one of the things that I kind of argued with her about was the restaurant. When I realized how people were getting sick in restaurants is through the air conditioning. So I asked her, I said, Governor, why don't you let us open up outside? Let these restaurants serve outside. And she says, no. And I thought, that's not right. In fact, there are articles where I actually asked her to do this. That, because that just makes sense, right? And the other thing is this, when that vaccine came out, I would make you get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, don't get the vaccine. Now, if you have to go to a public building, wear a mask or something. But, if you don't go to a public building and you don't want the vaccine, well, that's your choice.
Real quick on the mask, even Fauci ultimately admitted that the mask had little to no effect because the virus was so small it could go right through the fibers. But nevertheless, that's old news from 5 years ago. I just wanted to touch on that because it's still a bit of a sore subject. One of the unintentional consequences from her decisions regarding that was the amount of people that ended up homeless after she forbade landlords from removing people from their homes for not paying their rent. But then all of a sudden, when everything was lifted, okay, now you owe the money. Well, these people plain flat didn't have it. Do you feel a lot of the homeless, and there's a lot right here in Otero County, who are homeless because of her decisions? Now, I'm not saying it's 100% her fault. If you had the money, you should have spent it on your rent before you went and bought a new TV. I get that. But I also believe that her decisions had a lot to do with this. Your opinion?
Yeah, well, what I would have probably done, and they kind of did this with the unemployment insurance, is so you're aware that HUD has these vouchers. And they could have, if they knew that the federal government was going to be reimbursing them, because this is what I did as mayor of Las Cruces. I knew that we had to have so much money to get, like, let's take the migrant situation. When they would drop them off with little notice, I had a special fund that we would use, pay for that, knowing that I'd get it reimbursed from the government 2 years from now. So I would probably do the same thing to help these residents with their landlords, and knowing that I'm going to get reimbursed, because landlords have payments too, most of them. There's a few that probably haven't paid off, but even if they haven't paid off, that's money that they're counting on. I mean, I thought that was incredulous to think that, you don't have to pay your rent. Well, wait a minute, what about the mortgages that these landlords have? It's gonna, the bank's not going to forgive them. I know a few of them said something like, okay, we'll change the due date, or they'll put the balance on the back end. But nonetheless, I would have probably done something like that. And as far as homeless, I did actually go see a few. I talked with them. I want to know what's going on, because I noticed literally after COVID there was an explosion of it, even in Las Cruces. And a lot of them, believe it or not, were on Social Security because Social Security shut down. Oh my goodness, that was terrible. And they needed to get things restarted. They needed to have an appointment. And it made sense. They said, look at, this is my stuff here. And, it's usually in a shopping cart. I can't push all this. And where I was visiting these homeless people, they were probably 2-3 miles away from the Social Security office. They said, I can't push this 3 miles. And then what am I going to do? Just leave it outside their building and then go inside? I can't even go inside, they said. I got to set an appointment. And a lot of them didn't have an ID card. So I learned from that experience, and what I would do is I'd have a task force of state employees that would be granted access to some federal information so that we could help get them their benefits that they need to get started with Social Security. Bottom line is this: we're going to be an administration that really helps the people. I know some of your listeners are thinking, yeah, we've heard that before, but I'm a little bit different here. I've been in public office for 30 years. I was a county commissioner for 8 years, city council for 6 years, longest serving mayor for 16 years. I've been elected 11 times. I don't get elected 11 times by not listening to people. I do what I say, and I'll do the same as governor. So if I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, right? It's not like I've just been elected one time and but years ago when I was recruited by the FBI, they would always say, we want to look at your past because that's going to give us a good indication of your future. So if you want to see what kind of governor I'll be, you look at what kind of mayor, city council, or county commissioner I've been.
Ken, if you are governor, you're going to have people all over the state looking at you, asking questions. Here in Otero County, there's about to be some major changes. In specific, Alamogordo is about to have a mayoral election. Have you met or spoke with any of the candidates running for mayor, and do you have a comment or a statement about the mayoral candidates here?
I have not. I'm sorry, I haven't. I don't. I used to, but I haven't. I mean, ever since we announced our candidacy in May, and we started an exploratory committee in February, it's slowly been taken off. Now it's to the point where, and I have, say 10 people helping me, and it's a lot. It's crazy. I mean, it's good. We're just nonstop. There's just all kinds of requests coming in, and I can feel the momentum building, but I have not seen or looked at the mayoral contest. Is it elected citywide? Is that how they elect the mayor? In
the past it was not, but within the last several years it has become a mayor at large, so yes.
Okay, yeah. I remember there was a mayor, I think his name was Boss. I thought that was a pretty cool name, Mayor Boss.
Yeah!
And, let's see, there was a woman, what was her name? I can't remember her name. But, I'd reach out to them from time to time. In fact, there was one that I did used to reach out to. She'd come to my State of the City addresses. What was her name? Let me see if I can find it while we're talking. But yeah. So, but again, that's good. Do you guys you don't have ranked choice voting, right?
Negative.
Yeah, I would recommend that. It's good stuff.
While you're looking at that, I've kept you on the phone for significantly longer than I had intended to, so I apologize for that, Ken, but you have a lot to say, and in my opinion, I am, for the record, I am a libertarian, so, when it comes to being a political outcast, believe me, I understand all too well what that's like. Republicans and Democrats alike look at me and say, get him, he's all of them, so I understand. It's kind of refreshing, though, to hear someone like you, who sounds like, to be honest, an old-fashioned blue dog Democrat, a JFK Democrat, someone that's
exactly what people call me. It's funny. I didn't know JFK. I was 5 months old as an infant when he was killed, so I don't know what they are. But I've had some people tell me that. Susie Galea. That's the only name that's popping up here. Is that a mayor of?
Yeah. She was mayor, and she didn't. Let's just say KALH and Sweet Susie did not play well together.
All right. Well, there you go, Karen.
Okay.
But I remember Mayor Boss because I thought that was a pretty cool name.
Okay, so how does someone learn more about you? If they have questions for you, where are you going to be appearing? Because, this is a major, right now with MLG, it seems to be feast or famine. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people say, yeah, she's there. They either love her or they despise her. That's going to be kind of tough to separate yourself from that. A lot of people hear Democrat, and quite honestly anymore, they think AOC or Bernie Sanders type socialism as opposed to an old-fashioned blue dog. How does someone learn more about you?
Well, they can go to my website, kenfornewmexico.com, and in there they can go to my Facebook. Either one will work. But if they go to my website, I put up my positions really early on, since February, March. Because remember, I've seen statewide candidates throughout the years, and I would take notes thinking, I'll never do that, or I'll think I'd do this, or I wouldn't do that. And one of the things that I always found really frustrating was they just have these talking points or one or two sentences of like, I want better schools. I think our kids have to have better education, and we need to reduce crime. Well, tell us exactly how you plan on doing it and how much is it going to cost. And I have that. Like, for example, in fact, unfortunately, Alamogordo has lost in the last 10 years 2 police officers. And I went to both funerals, by the way. And in the Albuquerque Journal, I wanted to make sure, and I come from a law enforcement family, I wanted to make sure that if those officers want a partner, and would you believe the number one day that police officers get hurt are on Mondays? You'd think they'd be weekends, but it's Monday. So I thought, okay, I want to have, if the chief of police in Alamogordo wants, their officers some additional help, partners either on the weekends or on Mondays, I want to be able to provide that access to them, whether it's through funding or manpower. And because I can only imagine the effects that, not only to the community, but the spouse, the family, when they lose an officer. I mean, that's huge. And I just want to just make sure everybody is good, and we're going through some really tough, challenging times. We'll get through it, but it's going to take, some out of the box thinking. And like I said, I have my positions in there, and Albuquerque Journal covered it. And one of the things I wanted to utilize, like there's 3 military police units in the National Guard, and I want to be real careful about this. There's a law called the Posse Comitatus law, which you can't use National Guard because they're theoretically, when they're on duty, they're military, right? And they are military, but when they're activated, you can't use that. So on the weekends that they're not, if they want to be special police officers and want to make some extra money and help their community, why not? And if I was a National Guardsman and I was trained as a military police, and I work 1 weekend a month, and I have 3 weekends, off, and I want to earn a little bit of extra money and I want to help my community, I'll work 2 or 3 days extra. So I've budgeted that. I want to, and I right now I feel I can find $1.5 million in the budget savings. I've been looking at that budget. Budget's huge, but I think I can find that in there. And that's what I'm trying to get at. I have specific policies on how I'm going to do this. I'm not just giving you a couple sentences. I have it in detail, and I have yet to really deviate on any of my details because it's something I've been working on for a long time. That's why I didn't run for the 5th term, because I knew I couldn't be mayor of Las Cruces and run for governor. It's just too much. It's a lot.
Absolutely.
Running for statewide office. I mean, I just finished a 8-day tour of New Mexico, and just got done. Today was kind of my first day off.
Yeah, and here I have you on the phone working.
That's okay. No, I believe me. Like I told you, Alamogordo is near and dear to my heart. And so I
appreciate that. I do, and I know a lot of people listening are going to appreciate that. We're talking to Ken Miyagishima. He's running for governor, and he sounds like an old-fashioned Democrat, which is very, very refreshing. Ken, I've had you on the phone for a half hour. I'm going to let you go. But so many other things I did want to talk to you about. The nuclear waste plant that was shut down by the governor and how much that just cost us in jobs, and also, unfortunately, the Elijah Hadley shooting here in Otero County, something else I had planned on talking to. So we'll have to talk again is what I'm getting at in the future. But before I let you go, I'm going to give you the last word. What is it you want people to know about you? Who is Ken Miyagishima?
Well, I'm the former mayor of Las Cruces, and I know that a lot of the media didn't pick it up in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, but Las Cruces was ranked the number 1 best city in the state and the top 10 best run cities in the nation for 7-8 years in a row. And I'm not here to try to, make cities do what I envision. I want to be a resource for them. I want them to be able to, if they're experiencing something, our team, our administration will be that, this is how we did it here. This is what I think you can do here. I just want the public to know that research me. 30 years, I haven't had any scandals. I mean, in public service, and I still have gas in the tank and want to serve my state. I'm really concerned with the direction that the state is taking, and I know I can fix it. And all I ask is a fair shot for them to research me, look at my information that I've put out. I'm for real, and I'm not, I really feel that we're going to win this race. And so I'll be available. In fact, I'm going to have 7 deputy chiefs of staff. Each one's going to have a certain area that they're going to be responsible for. If you have a resident that calls up, needs something, they call a city council, county commissioner, whatever, they can call us, and we'll make sure that it's resolved. We may not answer their question 100% like they'd like, but we're not going to leave them hanging. And we're going to have an ombudsman follow up with them a couple days later to make sure that their service was taken care of. We're going to provide five-star service to them. I've been a public servant for 30 plus years, and I know a little bit about it, and I want to make sure that they're treated like I would like to be treated.
In my opinion, Ken, we have not had a really good governor since Gary Johnson, and that's been 25 years ago. That being said, it sounds like you have some great ideas, so we need to get to know you a little better and learn more about you. So I do encourage everyone to check out his website, check out his Facebook page, and attend any rallies he may be holding so you can learn more about this man who wants to fix the state.
I'll come down over there. I mean, I go to Alamogordo from time to time, so I'll go sit in your studio and we can talk there.
That sounds like a plan.
Got to go visit my good friend Mike Haynes over there. I don't know if you know Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, he's a good guy. So, okay, well, good chatting with you. Thank you for giving me some airtime, and I'll return.
Oh, definitely. I can't wait to talk to you more, because like I said, there's so many other things to discuss. How to get the state of New Mexico at a 51st place with education when there's only 50 states. Things like that we really need to dig down deep, and so I look forward to it, Ken. Take care, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.